Okay, hey there guys. Hopefully this is all working properly again. I really probably should have checked that before I started streaming. Um, but yeah, so what we're going to talk about here is, well, drone flying, what's legal, what's not, where you're allowed to do it, where you're not allowed to do it, and all that fun stuff. And you may be wondering why I have my iPad showing when we're about to talk about drones. I mean, normally it's something, it's my Android device or the like, which I've got up, right? But we'll get there in a moment. I'm just double checking my stream here because, yeah, well, I just did the Marcus Rant check, and sometimes I need to double check that things are working properly. So actually the easiest way of doing that might be to ask my wife if she can just quickly check. Or I could use Facebook. I didn't think of that. Or I could just pray that's Andy watching and turn around and go, hey Andy, am I actually able to be heard? Cool. That's always good. So, okay. There's been a number of people, not just Andy, but a couple of others who have asked me about where you're allowed to fly, what you're allowed to do, and all this fun stuff. So I figured we'd take a look at, well, what's legal, what's not, what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do, and things like that. And that's part of the reason why we have the iPad showing here, because we're going to bring up this lovely little program by Oz Runways called Runways Check. You'll notice that when I do this, it's showing me where I am in Australia. It's giving me the map, which is a standard VFR map, and it's saying that Sea Lake is 2.5 nautical miles. So, based on this rule, I'm within, this circle shows the area around me. And because Sea Lake's within it, I'm altitude limited. Basically, we've got a 3 nautical mile ring around us, which is what up here is showing. And if there's an airfield within that 3 nautical miles, then we're altitude limited. That's the first one. The other one is basically, if you look, there's 2 approach paths, or 4 if you get technical, and we can't fly in any of those. So we're limited to 400 feet automatically above ground level. Everything here is above. Whenever I talk altitudes here, it's all above ground levels. So we're limited to 400 feet AGL because of the fact that we are within 3 nautical miles of an aerodrome. We are also limited in where we can fly in town because it's a built up and populated area. However, if we were to move up here slightly, so say where I fly occasionally, which is over at the lake over here, we could fly to whatever altitude we can see, because we're basically limited only by visual line of sight, which is the rules there. So we could go up to 1,000 feet technically if we could still see the drone. It becomes safety and the like once you get over and outside the 3 nautical miles. The other reason we've got this up though is because on the iPad is because we're going to go out into Oz Runways itself for a moment here, and we're going to look at the airspace chart. So all around Australia you have various airspaces. So if we look here, we can see that this is divided up into circles and the like as we get down here. And out here we can see other bits and pieces. But if I bring up the side view here, we can basically see at the moment that there's no airspace around me. So this is all Class G airspace immediately around me. Its lower limit is 1,250,000 feet. So basically I'm out in the middle of nowhere and I can fly to whatever altitudes because of that as well. However, if we can't, as we start getting in towards Melbourne, you'll notice we start getting these rings and the Class E lower limit starts changing. We can see that here, the airspaces. So we're limited as we come in. Say we went out to Maryborough, for example, which is where Andy is. Maryborough's out here. So we've got the Maryborough airfield. If we want to call it that, it's about as good as Sea Lakes, but they also do paradrops there, which is what this marking's for. But we're also within the class, we've got Class C airspace from flight level 120 and above, so it's controlled airspace. We have to be aware of that, and we couldn't technically enter that airspace at all. We're not allowed to. So we couldn't go up to flight level 1 to, I believe that was 125, which is 12,500 feet. It's not the easiest thing to get a drone up to, trust me. Not unless you're going off to begin with from one of those really high altitudes, because I mean, if we look here, we've got the altitudes for everything in the area, and I believe Andy sent me a photo just now of Mount Becksworth, which is just here. So there's Mount Becksworth just there. And it's 2,084 feet. So I could take off from there and be safe and the like. Down in controlled airspace, you're limited to... So if we come down into Melbourne, we're limited to 400 feet no matter what, and you've got to be really careful because you can't fly anywhere near over in here, you can't, and the like, because it's all towered airspace. It becomes very tricky. The other rules that you end up getting placed on you, and as a hobby flyer, you must remain within visual line of sight. So we can't go, say, fly up into clouds. We violate the visual line of sight rule when you do that. Basically, if you were not able to fly under visual meteorological conditions, or VMC, you can't fly your quad, your RC airplane, your helicopter, your glider, whatever. You can't fly in those conditions. You're not technically allowed to fly at night. It's a weird one because night flying's not actually listed as prohibited, and yet at the same time they can fine you for it. Go figure. It's one of those ones where technically I think they want you to be a member of the stupid organisation and pay your dues and be made, checked and all this crap and fly within specialised spaces for it. Partly understandable, partly just effing annoying, but it's one of those ones where I prefer not to run the risk, so that's why you don't see any night videos from me, as much as I'd love to get the view of here at night and things like that. We're limited to 25 kilograms on hobby flying, so we cannot fly anything that goes over the 25 kilogram mark. And give me one moment, just need a drink. So what I might do here is, if we go CASA RC regulations, I actually have this downloaded, so I just got to find where I've downloaded it to. So I'm going to share a web browser here, so screen capture, we'll hope that, and it's being a pain in the butt like normal. So we'll do it the old-fashioned way. Do that, and we'll get rid of this for a moment. So CASA puts this out. This is called Advisory Circular 101-3. 101-3 is the rules that basically control unmanned aircraft and rockets on a model scale. There's an amendment to this which you've got to be aware of if you are flying, because that rules changed very recently. So if we go CASA, drone rules again, and we jump to Part 101 amendments, we've got to be aware of this stuff because there was some changes. So if we jump back up here, we can see the basic rules. So these are the basic rules that we have to follow. So you must be flying visual line of sight. So no night flying generally. No flying in cloud or fog. And you've got to be able to see it with your own eyes. Unless you fly under the procedures of an approved model flying association, such as the MAAAA bar, which I reckon is complete and utter BS. You must not fly closer than 30 metres to vehicles, boats, buildings, and or people. So that's the reason why you see a lot of my footage is out and away from everything, because I tend to, well, if you look at Sea Lake, there's not a lot around here. I mean, I can fly most places, but yeah. The other one is that you can't fly over populated areas such as beaches, heavy populated parks, sports ovals, etc., while they're in use. The caveat there is while they're in use. Just like the 30 metres of people is, they're not a stick and vehicles and the like. They're not going to fine you if you're flying and somebody suddenly, you took off in an empty field or an empty park or the like, and someone just comes walking straight through. You're not going to get into the crap for that, because it's actually in the rules, the fact that you cannot you can't be responsible for what other people are doing. You're responsible for you and your drone, for the safe operation of the drone and the like. We can not fly above 120 metres or 400 feet above the ground within controlled airspace, which is, of course, most Australian capital cities, and as if, like I pointed out on the thing, as we get closer and the like. But once you're outside most of the capital cities, you don't have that problem. You must not fly in a way that creates a hazard to other aircraft, and you should keep at least 5.5 kilometres away from airfields. That's the 3 nautical mile marker that I showed on the other one, which, as it says here, 3 nautical miles, radius of an airdrome or helicopter landing site are possibles, but you have to comply with these rules. And these are actually all laid out in this lovely little document, which most people have probably never read at all. But it boils down to that if we flip over here and we have a look at, say, we'll use Maryborough Seams, presuming it actually wants to load in. Oh, it's done this to me before. Let's go to YMML. Go. So we'll get it to take me to Melbourne for a moment. And then we're going to find Maryborough. So let's go find Maryborough. That'd be Ballarat. So Maryborough is just up here. Now, like I said, I don't count Maryborough actually really as an airfield. Part of the problem, of course, here is, unlike most, it's not giving us the approach paths for Maryborough either. So this becomes a problem. I mean, if you're not familiar with the area, how the heck are you meant to know where these, where the actual runways are? So if we flick it, I'm just going to jump over and have a look over here. The other thing I'll show is that app I was talking about, the one that I had up on the iPad. So if we bring this back up, you'll notice that there are these big red areas when I come in on the capital city. You can't fly in these red zones. They're no-no zones. So you'll notice that you can't fly down in Avalon, you can't fly at Tullamarine, can't fly at Essendon, at least not high. That's all controlled airspace. We come over to Maryborough, and of course Maryborough is, so here we've got Maryborough. Basically what we'd be limited to on it is, this is the runways at Maryborough apparently. So we can fly technically right here. We could fly right here in the field. Probably not the best idea to, but we could. But we can't fly along these approaches here, and we can't fly in what would be the pattern. So if we look at this, I'd have to pull up the data, but the pattern's probably, it's normally a left-hand turn. So the pattern's around here. We can't fly in that area, we can't fly in this area. Just to be safe, we can't fly in this area and we can't fly in this area. So you're better off just drawing a circle around the place and going, we're not going to fly there. On the other hand, we could come over to, say, the JG Hedges Memorial Park and fly there. Presuming there's not a lot of people in the park and we're not going to run the risk of falling out of the sky and bouncing them on the head. We could come down to the Goldfields Reservoir, fly there. We could fly at the Bristol Hill Reserve without a problem. We'd run into problems flying over here at the Alex Chisholm Flora Reserve. How many Chisholms are around Australia? Jesus. Sorry, just the reason for that is one of my TAFE teachers and one of the guys who taught me how some of the real fine work of photography is Luke Chisholm, and he said that his last name seems to come up everywhere. But I mean, the thing that Andy's, for example, has been talking to me about is like some of the views that I can get or have gotten with the drone around here. And the big one here is, of course, that yeah, most of the area in and around Maryborough, well, actually everywhere around there, so long as I'm not breaking the property rules and the like, you know, you don't go walking into a farmer's field. You don't. You try not to run the risk of, hey, look, my drone's going to run out of battery, fall from the sky, it's going to crash into a farmer's field and cause problems. But you know, as long as you're polite and the like, you can fly just about anywhere once you're out of the cities, and that's the golden part about it. And if you look at this, technically anything under 150 kilograms are considered to be operated privately and regulated by the provisions for model aircraft. So there's more information in the Now, if I'm flying for money, we're limited to 2 kilograms. Flat out limited to 2 kilograms without fuel. That's the big one that people tend not to understand. That's 2 kilograms without your fuel. So, in the case of my drones, my fuel is... Let's pop the So in the case of all my stuff, there's the fuel. It's called a battery. And these things aren't exactly light. I mean, the batteries tend to add 20... easy 120, 200 grams or more, depending on the battery size. I mean, that's a 2.2 microamp amp hour battery, whereas these are 5.2s, and you know, they weigh about the same as the 2.2, but different voltage charge. And of course, if I just only had this set, and I mean, I've got the problem, I need a birth certificate to get this ARN, and I don't have mine at the moment. I keep meaning to get it, but because I lost mine, but I've not gotten around to doing it. You run into some other problems, because you'll notice here, you're limited to controlled aerodromes. So I couldn't fly anywhere near a controlled aerodrome. Now, the big one people forget on that is it specifically states controlled aerodrome. Places like Maryborough, Sea Lake, Swan Hill, Mildura, they're not controlled. Controlled means towered, but a lot of people don't understand the rules there either. You can't fly in restricted areas, and I'll explain this part in a moment. And this actually covers normal flying as well. We've got to keep 30 metres away and the like. We'll notice that it refers a lot to the advisory circulars, so 101-3-10 and all that fun stuff. So if we come in here, there is a lot of crap that a lot of people do not understand or don't read through. So let's just have a look. So the purpose of the Advisory 101 is exactly that. It's an advisory circular. It's to advise people what they can and can't do under the regulations. The first part introduces the fact that, you know, the rules of flight are governed by CASA. A lot of us wish they weren't, but they are. It's 4.2 turns around and tells us that it's responsibility of the operator to ensure that it's flown safely and within the regulations. So it doesn't matter if you don't know the regulations, it's your responsibility to know the regulations. So, and you're the one who wears the fine if you break the rules. And a fine's you getting off lightly. They can actually prosecute you if you do some really bad stuff, like going and flying by a fire or something. 4.3 just says that guidance is also given beyond the statutory requirements. So they give some guidance, but they're guidelines, not rules. And then that part 101, because this is part of a bigger document, it warns that, you know, that none of this is meant to influence the other parts. So yeah, if there's any conflict, then the other ones win. Definition of a model aircraft. So a model aircraft is any unmanned aircraft other than a balloon or kite. So you can fly a kite or a balloon without any of these problems, which is flown for sport or recreation purposes, weighing not more than 150 kilograms, including fuel. So in that case, it's fuel. The 150 kilogram limit is with fuel. And equipment installed in or attached to the aircraft at the commencement of its flight. A model aircraft flown for any other purposes. So Mine's recreational. Any other is if you're flying it for commercial, it immediately becomes a UAV, which is why we have this 101-10. Model aircraft is excluded from most of the regulations applied to other aircraft. You don't have to worry about registration, licensing, airworthiness certifications, but you do have some stuff which you have to make certain of, which is down in Appendix 1. They're basically all your stuff's classed by weight. So if it's less than 100 grams, which is most of those, those little micro quads and the like that you see people flying around in houses and the like, they're exempt. They basically aren't cut. You can do whatever you want with them. 100 grams to 25 kilograms is a model aircraft, and 25 kilograms, but less than 150 is a giant. And you can only fly a giant one under the watchful eye of the MAAA, who I don't want to be a member of, so therefore I don't go that big. We get to this part where they tell you where you can learn to fly. Basically, CASA would prefer that you went and learned through the the MAAA, basically. But you don't have to. And I learnt using a simulator. And of course, for commercial, then you need to do that stuff. With your safety, you run through the normal stuff, so suitable weather. Is there anything are you a safe distance from everything? Are you breaking any local bylaws and the like? So models weighing up to 25 kilograms. So this is the set that we're talking about. And you've got to remember these rules have changed slightly, but you can only fly when the weather is suitable. Clear of the movement areas of runways in an aerodrome. Below 400 feet above ground level, unless clear of controlled airspace and further than 3 nautical miles from any aerodrome. Now, this part actually changed. It used to be that you could not fly within 3 nautical miles flat chat of an aerodrome. So they have actually changed that part. Within sight of the operator at all times, well clear of populous areas, and populous areas are defined as built-up areas, towns, etc., etc. At least 30 metres clear of persons, vehicles, vessels, structures. This can be reduced for persons behind the direction of takeoff, so that's for when you're doing displays and stuff like that. And it also any other model operators, assistance officials, and the like, plus any vessels, vehicles, or structures under the control. This is the one that really gets me, because technically that under the rules there is nothing actually stopping me, for example, being in the passenger seat of a car controlling the drone visually, flying along with the drone, keeping it within visual sight while somebody else is driving the car. That's not illegal. And of course that you should have stuff like that all your loads are secure, that your fail-safes of the like. The MAA stuff for 25 kilos and over is completely different, and I tend not to go into it, because there you start getting into some really big stuff. And I'm just double checking that I haven't got any more comments, and we don't. Good. So we flip back to here. So the stuff about where you can fly, warns you that you are within control space of 3 nautical miles of an aerodrome. You need to get permission most times to fly. Try to use a site that's already established. Yeah, good luck finding one around here. You just use wherever you can find. controlled airspace, and again, like I said, we'll look at that and restrict it in one moment once we get through this. The approved areas, and that you need to, these are just numbers and the like. Commercial activities, you're defined by some other rules, and you need CASA approval, which is what that other part was about. So Appendix A, radio controlled models. These are basically all the rules that you have to follow. So you're not allowed to be used on... You must check your RC aircraft prior to each and every launch. That is not a maybe, I might, I'll think about it. It's you must. Sorry, had to mute for a moment there. Obviously, I didn't think everybody wanted their eardrum blown out by me sneezing. If you take off and you've not done your checks and your drone blew up, you're at fault. If an engine falls off and it falls down and donks somebody on the head, you're at fault, etc, etc. So that's why this. So any abnormal hard landings, if not that anybody really ever bothers coming out flying with me, but we basically, anytime I have a crash or the like, I double check my drone. I have to. We can't run metal propellers at all. Metal propellers are a no-no. You can run wood, fiberglass, not fiberglass, carbon fiber, plastic, and the like, but you're not allowed to run metal propellers. You get into a lot of trouble if you do that. You basically have to check your linkages and all that fun stuff beforehand, and check all your stuff for your batteries, blah blah blah. You need to do a range check on your equipment and the like, and basically before you take off you need to do all that stuff again. You've got to avoid overflight of houses, gardens, car parks, traffic, spectators and the like. But as it points out here, you have no control of people walking by at a reasonable distance from your takeoff landing area, but you should be careful not to overfly them at low level. Like a great example of this is yesterday I had a guy turn up and check the cricket pitch at the Oval. I couldn't do anything about it, so I just kept the drone up above, higher than the thing, and yeah. Any sign of malfunction, you've got to land, and never assume the landing clear is clear. Then you get your whole bunch of checks that you meant to do beforehand, which is damage, all the stuff I mentioned up there basically. Check before each flight, you know, that your receiver and everything's working. Some of these are that old, it's not funny because it's designed for back in the age of UHF, and they've not updated it to the digital age. And yeah, they haven't updated it to the quad age either in some parts. Because I fly a helicopter, it doesn't have ball linkages and slops and stuff like that. Then we get electric powered, so what they call silent flight models. So if anybody's been around an electric model, they know it's not silent, and you basically are meant to know all this stuff. It's your launching and stuff like that. Gas turbine. Yes, you can actually fly gas turbines so long as you go become a member of the MAAA, basically. And the reason for that is, you know, those things are capable of 400 kilometers an hour, and stuff like that, and they tend to, the way they do it is that you is this part. It is strongly recommended that a model aviator organisation with comprehensive safety precautions be contacted in order for the operator to be trained in the requirements. You need permission for models over 25 kilograms, as I said, and then just the general stuff here. You get the coral line. This goes. The document's fairly big. It's got a lot of appendices. So, you got stuff here such as the fact that you've got to keep 30 metre between the stuff for doing displays and power lines, which is basically don't fly. Don't fly near them. The legislation for all this and where it all is for rocketry as well. So that's all for rocketry up there. And then you get to this part. Which is the unsafe operation. So, if you do this, you start getting penalty units. So, if they can get you on these, you get penalty units, and each penalty unit is dollars. And it all starts adding up rather quickly. There's a bunch in there. But I strongly suggest if you're doing any RC flying, at least have a look at this. They send out this little leaflet these days. With most drones. Where is it? It's here. This is these two. I love these little ones. In part because it's a case of, hey look, CASA can't even get some of their own stuff right. But they send out this with your drones, and I mean, that's one of the most cheapest ass looking drones I've seen for a while. Same for the firefighting one, which is basically don't. It's actually illegal, and they point out the fact that it is illegal. And the reason we're normally limited to 400 feet, just in case anybody's wondering, is 500 feet is the minimum level for most planes. So if you're only flying to 400 feet, there's 100 feet between you and anybody flying. But let's get back to that where I made that comment about restricted airspace. So we'll just flick over, get rid of this monitor for a moment again. Where's my desktop? Get rid of that one. That one, and we want this back. So, if we come over to Oz Runways, wait for it to open up, you'll notice that we get these red areas. These are all restricted airspaces, active restricted airspaces. So you cannot fly in any of these zones. If any of them are active, you can't fly anywhere near it. So at the moment you're not going, even if you're well clear of Richmond for the most part, you've got the problem that Richmond's got a restricted airspace straight over it. Not that you should be able to fly that high, but you've got to be careful, especially as you come up into the mountains, because it's really easy to get into that 4,500 feet bracket. And if you're hobby flying and the like, and you do not have permission to be there, you can get into a lot of trouble. We've got the areas up here. You just got to be aware of all of it, and a lot of people aren't. A lot of people aren't aware of what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, where they can fly, when they're not allowed to fly. And because of that, you get people like the set complaining, saying that more accidents are going to happen, airspace is going to be closed down, yada yada yada. And accidents can happen. I'll be the first to openly admit that drones and planes colliding is going to make a mess. But the problem with places like the pilots associations and the like, which are up in arms, run into is they exaggerate. And they do exaggerate. The FAA, so the Yanks, did a very, very big study. And it boiled down to the fact that basically drones haven't been flying long enough for there to be a comprehensive outlay of the odds of a strike. So they looked at the next best thing, which would be those things called birds. I mean, what's the chances of a bird strike? And it works out to the chance of actually they worked it out that the chance of actually being hit by a drone is 1 in every 1.4 million years. Basically, so next to nothing. And the other comment that was made is that while a drone is plastic and some metal bits and the like, if your airplane could not survive a hit from a drone, then it could not survive a hit from a seagull. When you actually boil it up to densities and all that fun stuff, a seagull is actually more dangerous than a drone. So those guys up in arms claiming that it's going to cause problems and the like, yeah, it might, but no more than a bird. Okay, but overall, yeah, if you're not in a capital city and you want to go flying, you're for the most part limited to where you can see and that's the long and short of it, so long as you follow those rules in 101-3 if you're doing it for private use, and 101-10 if you're doing it as a UAV / commercial and the like, then you're able to fly where and what you want to do, so long as you can see your drone. Like I said, you know, apps like this, which is for anybody who doesn't know and missed the start of the stream, Oz Runways put out a really great app specifically for checking your distance from airdromes and the like. This will tell you if you're someplace where you might have a problem. You know, it's telling me right now that I'm within range of Sea Lake. You know, so I can check the AIP information on it. And I can check the IRSA if I need to. I can check supplements in case, you know, there's a restricted area and I'm not certain of it. And they're adding a lot more to this, which comes in handy. I don't think there's a lot of options in there for the normal stuff though at the moment. Certainly not on the maps. But you can toggle between the different types of maps. So here we can, you know, if I flick over, I can see the fact that the lower limit is flight level 125. So if I'm outside the 3 nautical miles of the aerodrome, which is where this map comes in handy again, we can go whichever height we want. Anyway, I hope that helps explain some of it. For stuff like doing videos of a train or the like, it's a case of how are you doing the footage. So technically you could get away with it by going up over the train or flying along the side of the train. So you've got the drone here. This is a drone. This is a train. You could have the drone flying like this. You could probably get away with swinging the drone over the top briefly because you're not causing a hazard. Big one you got to be aware of though, with something like a train or trucks or anything like that, is as they're moving, there's a wake across them. So you might think, yeah, great, I'm going to stick my drone here, and this is part of the reason the rules exist too. I might stick my drone here and have this real cool shot of the train come flying down, and I'm going to have the drone sitting above it. The like, you'd probably be better finding an overpass or an overcrossing or something and sticking a camera on it, because as this comes through, the air's going to buffet your drone and the like. Either that or take the drone up higher. For those who are interested in what's happened with the quad, my quad, so the Quantium's looking a little bit different these days. So we've got, it's got some extras on it. So you'll notice we've got the sonar module mounted here, which is used for basically within 3 meters for terrain guidance, so as it flies over it'll maintain that. We've got our 2.5, as I call it, stabilized axis gimbal. So we've got full rotation, full yaw, and 45 degrees on either side on the yaw there. We have a OSD mount in here now, and we've moved the telemetry, the radio over here, which might move again later, but I don't know yet. And because of all that, we've removed the front APM chip. This last time it was weighed up was 1.5 kilos, so even with the battery in, it's below the 2 kilos that you could commercial limit, and it shows you that you can get a decent drone and even remain commercially viable. But yeah, if anybody's got any questions relating to this type of stuff, feel free to drop a message in the comments and I'll get to them, and I'll put them in a list and I'll address them next time I do a video on it. Or if you're one of the people who likes chatting to me in message like Andy did, throw me a message on Facebook or the like, and I might, quickly do up a video that turns into into 30 minutes or longer. But that's one of the things I can do. I can help let people know this type of stuff, because in the end, this is a great hobby. Quad flying, RC flying, I've got a Bixler on the wall in there. It's what I learnt on. It's a great little glider. I've flown and crashed my Wild Walrus. My wife would probably be a lot happier if I hadn't. That was $200 and something odd worth of plane that went into a tree. It ended up very, very, very broken, though it did fly again afterwards. She will admit I did get it flying again. Until a cat decided that it was going to destroy it completely. But it's a great hobby, and the thing about the hobby though, is it's only a great hobby so long as we don't get slapped with a whole bunch of regulations like other places in the world has. So you'll notice that the EU and the like is removing a lot of people's ability to fly drones, to fly planes, to fly FPVs. Sweden, of all places, you can't fly with a camera on your bird anymore. You can put it in a car, but you can't fly it on an RC airplane. New Zealand cracked down on people. We're one of the few countries that are actually sitting there going, well, hang on a second, let's remove the regulations. Let's trust people to be smart. And part of that means that people need to learn and understand what the rules are. We need to have an understanding that there are rules that people need to know. There are regulations in place to make things safe, not only for us, for people around us, for other planes. And that, yes, if you want to do some stuff commercially, you have to fork out money. You know, CASA's got to make their part on the side somehow. I really wish they didn't, because I'll be honest, I'd love to not have to go find some place and pay $3,000-4,000 just to learn what I already know. But that's the way of things. And it's better off that everybody be safe, sound, and everybody knows the rules, because that way we all get to enjoy the hobby, and my nephews and nieces and the like will be able to enjoy the hobby as much as I have. But anyway, my name's Rob. I've gone on long enough, and I will catch you all later.